Welcome to Walking the Haftarah. I'm Tyler Merwin, and this is Torah portion BALAK. This week's Torah portion is Numbers 22:2 through 25:9. Our Haftarah this week is Micah 5:7 through 6:8. BALAK means the guy named Balak, who's actually the king of Moab. And the opening line of our Torah portion reads, "And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites." Numbers 22, verse 2. This week, our Torah portion will be part 2 of a double portion when read in non-leap years, read with Torah portion Huchat. Our portion this week will be the story of Balak of Moab and the sorcerer Balaam and their attempts to curse Israel. We'll also hear about Pinchas's righteousness and zealous act, and of course, a talking donkey. Our Haftarah this week is from the prophet Micah, where he references the story of Balak and Balaam. So let's begin with a review of this week's portion. For context, let's back up one verse to the end of last week's portion and read on from there. "Then the people of Israel set out and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was in great dread of the people, because they were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel." Numbers 22, verses 1 through 3. Balak is the king of Moab, and Israel is camped at his doorstep. Balak is thought to be known as a warrior, because he's actually just, normally kings are referred to as King so-and-so, but he just references Balak. That's why they think he's a warrior, or more known as a warrior. But he is in fear of Israel, or say, more Israel's God. Sihon and Og were thought to be the mightiest warriors of the region, and Israel had just wiped them out. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This horde will now lick up all that is around us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field." Numbers 22:4. Moab and Midian are not allies, they are not friends, but under this common threat, they decide to work together. After conferring with one another, the decision is made to seek the help of the sorcerer/prophet called Balaam. Our text actually doesn't tell us the exact reason for this course of action, but my take is that they properly discerned that this was actually a war of the gods, and Israel's god, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, was decimating the gods that they had served. Since Balaam was also called upon Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, they thought maybe he could turn Israel's God against Israel. In the end, that's exactly what he did, but not in the way that Balak was hoping for. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees of divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. Numbers 22:7. Balak's message was asking Balaam to curse Israel for him, because he could not defeat them in battle. Balaam tells them to lodge there for the night, and that he will inquire of Adonai. Adonai answers Balaam that he was not to go with this entourage, that he was not to curse this people, which is Israel, because they, in fact, are blessed. The next morning, Balaam tells them that Adonai has refused to let Balaam go with him, so they return to Balak with the bad news. Notice Balaam only tells them a partial truth. He tells them that Adonai refused to let him go with them, which is true, but he withheld the fact that he was forbidden to curse them and that they were in fact blessed. Balaam is very selfish and greedy, but his actions can on the surface seem semi-righteous, that he's kind of just doing what Adonai wants him to do. But we'll see through that in a little bit. Once again, Balak sent princes more in number and more honorable than these. Numbers 22:15. Balaam knew and was expecting this to happen. It's all part of the game. He knew that the refusal would likely up the ante, which means more rewards for him. This new, more impressive entourage again asked Balaam to go with them, that they may pay him with great honor. Balaam was most likely not monotheistic. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was a god among other gods that he worshipped and called upon. Balaam did understand the ways of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, but did not live a life devoted to him. This and Balaam's selfishness are seen clearly in two ways in this portion. First, when Balaam is speaking of Adonai to those around him, he uses the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the aspect of God that shows his mercy and is relational, trying to portray that he has a close relationship with the Almighty, like they're tight. But when Adonai actually speaks with Balaam, it's actually Elohim, not Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which is the strict justice or creator aspect of God, not that warm, fuzzy relational part. The other part that shows Balaam's character is that in the original Hebrew, this entire story is one solid, uninterrupted paragraph with no breaks in the text whatsoever. The sages see normal textual breaks in the Torah as points to pause, to consider what we just read. Having no breaks in the text shows that Balaam did not ever pause to consider if what he was doing was even right, or whether he should be doing it at all. Balaam would keep on going as long as he could to get his earthly reward. He again tells this group to stay the night, and he would inquire again of Adonai. But Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, "Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, my God, to do less or more." Numbers 22:18. Silver and gold. Hint, hint. And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, "If the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only do what I tell you." So Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the princes of Moab. Numbers 22:20 through 21. Adonai lets Balaam do what he wants to do, but warns him to stay within Adonai's boundaries. But God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh took his stand in the way as his adversary. Now he was riding on a donkey, and his two servants were with him. Numbers 22:22. This again shows that Adonai was not pleased with Balaam going on this mission, but that's not going to stop Balaam. And the donkey saw the angel of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, and the donkey turned aside out of the road and went into a field, and Balaam struck the donkey to turn her into the road. Numbers 22:23. And we all know the story. This happens 3 different times and through tighter and tighter spaces. The number 3 is the number for resurrection and revelation. So after the 3rd time, Balaam is furious with his donkey, but Adonai opens the donkey's mouth and then opens Balaam's eyes to see the angel standing in his way. And the angel of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let her live." Numbers 22:32 and 33. The donkey, the beast of the field, could discern the angel, but the prophet could not. The angel lets Balaam proceed, but with the same strict warning to only speak the word that Adonai tells him. Balaam and company meet up with Balak near where Israel is encamped. Balaam tells Balak to erect 7 altars and to make sacrifices, and Balaam goes off to hear the word of Adonai. Adonai gives Balaam the words he is to speak, a blessing upon Israel, and not a curse. Like the donkey incident, this also happens 3 different times in 3 different locations. This time, Balak is furious, but after 3 prophecies of blessing, Balaam is given the revelation of the future and the time of Messiah. "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down the sons of Seth. Edom shall be dispossessed. Seir also, his enemy, shall be dispossessed. Israel is doing valiantly, and one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of the cities. Numbers 24:17 through 19. Balaam is given a vision of the Messiah conquering his enemies at the end of days. Then Balaam rose and went back to his place, and Balak also went his way. Numbers 24, verse 25. But before they parted ways, Balaam told Balak how to defeat Israel, as Yeshua references in Revelation 2:14 when he was speaking to the congregation of Pergamum. But I have a few things against you. You have some there who have hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. And we see this evidenced in the next verses of our portion. While Israel lived in Shittim, the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the peoples ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel yoked itself with Baal of Peor, and the anger of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was kindled against Israel. Numbers 25, 1-3. Adonai commands punishment for the leaders and the participants in these illicit affairs. And just then, an Israelite man brings in a Midianite woman into the midst of the camp and proceeds to have idolatrous relations with her near the tent of meeting. When Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose and left the congregation and took a spear in his hand and went in after the man of Israel into the chamber and pierced both of them, the man of Israel and the woman, through her belly. Thus the plague on the people of Israel was stopped. Nevertheless, those who died by the plague were 24,000. Numbers 25, verses 7-9. This brings us to our Haftarah this week, and to the prophet Micah. Micah 5:7-6-8. Micah was a prophet to the kingdom of Judah during a time of relative prosperity, but was warning about impending judgment that was going to be coming. We pick up in his prophecy as he's describing the coming of the future Messianic king at the end of days. Then the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many peoples, like dew from Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, like showers on the grass, which delay not for a man, nor wait for the children of man. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the nations, in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep, which when it goes through, treads down and tears in pieces, and there is none to deliver. Your hand shall be lifted up over your adversaries, and your enemies shall be cut off. Micah 5:7-9. The remnant is scattered among the nations, like we are today. We are described as dew, which means that our presence should bring spiritual nourishment to those that are around us in these nations. Yeshua, the Lion of Judah, will deliver us from our adversaries. In that day, declares Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I will cut off your horses from among you, and will destroy your chariots. I will cut off the cities of your land, and throw down all of your strongholds. Verses 10 and 11. In that day is a reference to the final redemption, the coming of the Messianic King and the return of all his people. When King Yeshua is ruling, we will not need to rely on military might, which is references as horses and chariots. We will also not need physical protection from our enemies. That's why we won't need walled cities or strongholds. And he will also purify his house and his people. And I will cut off the sorceries from your hand, and you shall have no more tellers of fortunes, and I will cut off your carved images and your pillars from among you, and you shall bow down no more to the work of your hands, and I will root out the Asherah images from among you and destroy your cities. And in anger and wrath I will execute vengeance on the nations that did not obey. Verses 12 through 15. At that time, there will be no idolatry in Israel, and wrath will be poured out on the nations that perpetrate it. Next, Adonai admonishes his people for not keeping his Torah. Hear what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh says. Arise, plead your case before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, you mountains, the indictment of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and you enduring foundations of the earth. For Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has an indictment against his people, and he will contend with Israel. Micah 6, verses 1 and 2. The heaven and the earth are Adonai's witnesses. Alternatively, the mountains and hills can also refer to the patriarchs and the matriarchs, also witnesses. O my people, what have I done to you? How have I wearied you? Answer me, for I brought you up from the land of Egypt, and redeemed you from the house of slavery. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. O my people, remember what Balak, the king of Moab, devised, and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him, and what happened from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Verses 3 through 5. Adonai has continually provided redemption and provision for his people. And the reference to Balak and Balaam is the actual tie-in to our Torah portion this week. With what shall I come before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Verses 6 and 7. So the question is, because we have failed him so much, how can we now approach him? He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh require of you but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? Verse 8. The answer is the condition of your heart. Our heart must be willing and seeking his will and his ways, and not our own. We are to do justice to those around us, dealing with honesty and integrity, using honest weights and honest measures. To love kindness is loving our neighbor as ourselves. It's taking care of the orphan and the widow and the stranger. It's overlooking offenses and forgiving those who have harmed us. And to walk humbly with our God is to have the proper reverence for him. This is to walk as Yeshua walked. It's not about checking off boxes, checking off commandments. It's about being his hands and feet. I pray this teaching has been edifying. Let's lift up the name of the Holy One. With love and echad. Shalom.